Hi, this is Mike Barrett from acethesat.com and also from testingiseasy.com. And in this series of videos, you're going to learn all about the SAT essay. We're going to start off with a discussion of why the SAT essay is so poorly designed. You need to understand why the design is so poor if you want to understand the best way to beat the essay, and then also understand how to take those lessons and apply them across the entire test. So let's go ahead and get started. You need to understand that the essay was only added because of this man that you see on the screen. His name is Richard Atkinson, and he was the head of the State University System of California back in 2003-2004. He publicly called out the College Board and basically threatened them with their existence when he said that if they didn't add an essay to the SAT-1, he would see to it that the state of California would stop using the test, which was a pretty big deal because, well, California's a pretty big state. So if they had stopped using it, that would be a bad thing from the College Board's perspective. And we need to understand that it's only because of this threat that the College Board went ahead and put the essay in. Now, the College Board side of it is they were going to put an essay in any day now anyway, and so they just went ahead and did it when he threatened them. But, well, it's pretty clearly not true. It's one of the many things the College Board will tell you about the SAT, which seems to have no basis in actual reality. The reason we know that they probably would never have added an essay on their own is that the essay format is fundamentally different from the rest of the SAT. The SAT is all about standardization, and multiple choice is a really, really good format for the purposes of standardization because multiple choice allows you to apply exactly the same standard across a potentially infinite number of test takers, right? If you're designing a test and you have a multiple choice format, then if people mark the correct answer for a particular question, they definitely get full credit. If they mark anything else, they don't get full credit. And you can apply that standard reliably, like I said, across any number of people. The essay format is really pretty different from that if you think about it. Essays are going to be written by different people who will mention different types of things. They have to be graded by different people who will look for different types of things. And the whole notion of standardization that can exist with multiple choice questions really is pretty hard to achieve when we get down to the essay format. So in order to beat the essay, we're going to have to understand how the College Board has decided to work around this huge, huge problem for them when it comes to the essay format. So, as I just mentioned, it's important to understand that the entire point of the SAT is the standardized nature of the test, right? And when you have to grade 2 million essays, it's pretty hard to do that. You know, 2 million essays is a lot of essays to grade every single year. You can't have one person grade all of them, right? Even if one person could grade 2 million things, by the time they got to number 2 million, they certainly wouldn't be applying exactly the same standards as they were applying in the beginning, right? To say nothing of the fact that the essays themselves are going to be wildly different in the things that they talk about and the ways in which they talk about them. So the whole standardization thing is extremely difficult to achieve when we're talking about 2 million essays a year. For this reason, the College Board needed to come up with a system that would incentivize the graders themselves to stick to a particular standard. You can't, like I said, have one person or one body or something like that review every single one of 2 million essays, and even if you could, it would be very hard to make that be standardized anyway. So the closest thing you can do to that, the most efficient thing, is to make the graders themselves try to stick to a standard, try to recognize a community standard, and then constantly work towards grading things in that way. So for this reason, the College Board has 2 graders read each essay. And if the graders differ from one another by 0 points or by only 1 point, then the College Board is happy with that. So each of the graders will give a score from 1 through 6, depending on what they think about the essay. And like I said, let's say that 2 graders look at the essay and they both think that it should be a 4. Well, then the College Board says, okay, if both of these people that we've trained look at this and they both reach the same opinion, a 4 is probably a pretty good score for, or an 8 rather, 8 out of 12, 4 out of 6 is probably a pretty good score for this essay. If they differ by 1 point even, the College Board will accept that as well because, again, they recognize that there is an inherent amount of subjectivity that really can't be avoided where this grading process is concerned. But if the scores differ by more than 1 point, for instance, if one reader gives it a 4 and another one gives it a 6, then the College Board says, okay, something has gone wrong here. Right? They say if these 2 people that we've trained to grade things look at this and have a totally different opinion as to what's going on, then we need to have a third set of eyes look at this. And this third person, this is really important to understand. When the third person looks at the score, he can only decide which of the two previous people was correct. He can't give it his own score. So all of this is done to encourage people to grade like other people, right? So the graders are encouraged to grade not as they would grade if they had carte blanche to decide what the correct score should be, but they're encouraged to grade according to what everyone else in the grading community would do. And those people in turn are also trying to grade like everyone else in the grading community. And by implementing the system, the College Board has basically motivated the graders to think like one another rather than to grade things on their own. So here's the big secret. If we can learn to write something that looks like all of the 12s that have gone before it, we have an excellent expectation that that will also get a 12. Because the graders, again, are going to be grading based purely on how your essay compares to their experience as far as what types of things make what types of scores on all the previous essays that they've ever graded or seen. So, very important to understand, because of the entire standardized aspect of the grading, we want to write something that looks like a 12. We do not necessarily want to write something that we think would be a good essay. Because looking like a 12 and being a good essay in real life, as we'll see in just a moment, are not necessarily the same thing, right? So, again, the 12 scoring essays do not necessarily look anything like real essays in real life, good essays in real life. Very important to understand that. So let's take a look at what the College Board's essay scoring guide looks like. The rubric says that a thing that gets a 6 out of 6 or a 12 out of 12 should, do sort of the standard good essay stuff. It should have clear and consistent mastery, whatever that means. It should effectively develop a point. It should be organized. It should have good use of vocabulary, good use of sentence structure, all types of things like that. And this is what we would probably think of as the markers of a pretty good essay. That's pretty much what good essays are like in real life, right? The problem is the rubric does not in any way reflect the reality of the grading process. I'm going to put a quote on the screen right now from a woman named Karen Klein, who is an editor for the Los Angeles Times, and who was invited by the College Board to come learn how the grading process worked for the essays back when the essays were first added to the test. And she describes at length in the article that I've cited here what it's like being a scorer and how the scorers are supposed to read things, right? So the way the scorers read things is not through a careful, detailed analysis of all the points in the rubric and all the things in the essay, and by very closely considering which things match up best with which parts of the rubric and which parts of the essay and all that stuff. Instead, they give it a quick once-over and they think to themselves, what would other people say this is? And then they give it that score. Okay, so because of this, to reiterate this for like the 800th time, top scoring essays are very frequently nothing like what the rubric indicates they should be like. We must understand this. If you are trying to get better at writing an SAT essay by following the guide that is provided by the College Board, you're going to have, well, at best, you'll waste a lot of extra time and still come out with a good score, but most probably you'll come out with a bad score, because the things that are on the rubric do not reflect at all what appears in 12s. Because of the standardized grading process, we need to come up with a standardized writing process. We need to come up with a formulaic way to take any prompt the College Board gives us and crank out something that the College Board graders will consider to be a 12 out of 12 or a 6 out of 6. So, for this video, I want you to take away the idea that writing a 12 and following the guide are not the same thing necessarily, and the reason they are not the same thing boils down to the way the College Board has decided to grade these essays. The grading process itself works against people who try to write a good essay, as the phrase good essay would be understood, in high school or in college English or history classes. So, in the next video, I'm going to explain to you what things the top scoring essays have in common. Like I said, these are not the things on the rubric. They are sort of unwritten rules. We have to learn these rules by looking at a whole bunch of 12 scoring essays. So I'm going to lay all that out for you and explain what your essay should do so that it will look like a 12. Okay, like I said, you're not going to find these things spelled out anywhere. And then in the video after that, we'll take a step back from this whole thing and explain why the lessons we've learned about the best way to write the SAT essay will demonstrate how SAT prep in general should also be done. And as you might expect, it's not the way that most people would do it. So thank you very much for watching this. Do make sure you watch the next video now that you understand how the whole grading process works and why it's so poor. In the next video, we'll explain how to exploit all of those weaknesses. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you there. Bye-bye.